You know what, Johanna? I had always heard that the Bible was boring, but what we've been reading is sure exciting.
Some of the humans in Genesis were sneaky and dishonest, all right.
Yeah, they lied and stole and connived and did all kinds of bad things.
Yes, but what's important is that even though they messed up, at least those who inherited the promise always came back to God and worshiped Him.
Now, let's see. The promise of a Savior coming through their line came from God to Abraham, to his son Isaac, then to his son Jacob, who had 12 sons. Who inherited from him?
Well, the promise went to Jacob's son, Judah. And then there's another story about Jacob's favorite son, Joseph. Wow!
I just got to where Jacob and his family separated from Esau and came to live in Canaan. I don't know what happened after that.
Well, I'm sure if you keep reading, you'll get there soon.
Oh, come on, Johanna, you can't just get me curious and then leave me hanging like this.
Okay. Well, you remember Jacob, without intending to, ended up with 4 wives, but he only loved one of them, Rachel.
Yeah, that was sad for the other 3. Rachel was his favorite, though.
Yes, and she didn't have any children for a long time, but finally had a son named Joseph. She had another son, a lot later, named Benjamin, before she died. Anyway, as I said, Joseph was Jacob's favorite of all of his sons. He treated him better and even had a beautiful coat made for him to wear. But his brothers were jealous.
Well, that was partly Jacob's fault, too, for having favorites like that.
It didn't help that Joseph sometimes tattled on his brothers. He'd bring bad reports about them to their papa.
Uh-oh, I don't like to get tattled on.
Then Joseph told him about some dreams that he'd had that made it look like his whole family would someday bow down to him.
Oh, I'll bet they really hated him then.
They did. So much so that one day, when Jacob sent Joseph out to check on them, and they saw him coming, they decided to kill him.
Yikes!
One of the brothers, Reuben, convinced them to put him into a kind of a deep hole instead. Reuben planned to come back later and pull Joseph out and take him home.
Oh, that's good.
No, because while Reuben was out with the sheep, the other brothers pulled him out and sold him as a slave to a band of traders on their way to Egypt.
They sold him? Wow, with brothers like that, who needs enemies?
This is a long story, Noah. Maybe you should read it for yourself.
Johanna, you can't stop now.
Oh, all right. Well, the brothers killed a goat and dipped Joseph's fancy coat in the blood and took it to their father, saying that the boy must have been killed by wild animals.
Oh, now that was really mean.
Yes, Jacob mourned for many years over the loss of Joseph. When the traders got to Egypt, Joseph was sold to a wealthy Egyptian named Potiphar, who sent him out to work on his land. God was with Joseph, and he was so good at everything he did that Potiphar soon put him in charge of the whole operation.
Well then, everything turned out okay.
Nope. Potiphar's wife accused Joseph of doing something bad, and Joseph was innocent, but Potiphar put him in prison anyway. Oh boy. Well, but Joseph pleased the man in charge there too, and was soon put in charge of the prison.
Well, he was still in prison, but it was better than it might have been.
Well, one day, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, sent his baker and his cupbearer to prison.
Well, I know what a baker is, but what is a cupbearer?
His job was to taste whatever was in Pharaoh's cup to make sure it wasn't poisoned, and then hand the cup to Pharaoh.
Oh, that's kind of dangerous, isn't it?
Yes, well, a while later, the 2 men each had a confusing dream, and Joseph interpreted the dreams for them. He told him that the baker would be executed, and the cupbearer would be returned to his position. Joseph asked the cupbearer to tell Pharaoh about him so that he could be freed from prison. Sure enough, Joseph's predictions came true.
Great! Then Joseph got out of prison. Well, no, not at that time anyway. Well, but why? Well, because the cupbearer forgot all about him. You know, Johanna, this is an exhausting story. First Joseph is up, and then he's down, and then he's up, and then he's down. Yes, well, so one night Pharaoh had a confusing dream, and none of his wise men or his magicians could tell him what it meant. The cupbearer remembered, and Pharaoh sent for Joseph. Oh, and Joseph interpreted for them. Yay! He sure did. The dream was a warning to Pharaoh that there would be 7 years of very good crops and then 7 years of extreme drought, no crops and no food. Joseph suggested that Pharaoh save all the extra food from the good years, and then there would be food to be distributed among the bad years. Pharaoh was so impressed that he put Joseph in charge of collecting all the food and then of handing it out. He even gave Joseph a wife. Joseph became second in command in the whole government of Egypt. Wow, that's a great story. Well, but that's not the end yet, because you see, during the drought, Joseph's brothers, all but Benjamin, came to buy food from Egypt. They didn't recognize Joseph when they bowed down to him. Wow, they bowed down to him, just like in his dreams. Yes, Joseph didn't tell them who he was. I think he wanted to know if they hated Benjamin the way that they had hated him. He accused them of being spies, and he kept one of the brothers in prison in Egypt. And then when they came again, they brought Benjamin with them, and Joseph could see that they treated him as a brother should be treated. Then he did reveal himself to them. Oh, I'll bet his brothers were scared then. Well, yes, they were. Joseph could have had them killed, but he forgave them. He told them that while they intended harm, God used it all for good. He invited Jacob and the whole camp of Israel to come and live in Egypt during the drought, and he let them live on the best land there. Amazing! Oh, God had this whole thing planned all along. Yes, he did. Even though our lives sometimes today seem like they're awful, God has a plan for each one of us, for our good and for the good of others, even when it doesn't look like it to us. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Wow, God sure is good, isn't he? I wonder. What? Do you suppose that this is all true about us and the mice? I don't. Oh, rats, you're right. We need to stop griping about the little terrorists and pray about what purpose God has for them, whether we like it or not. And we need to trust God and thank him for his plan. It's exciting to see what he might do. You're right, Noah. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing. I will sing. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord. With my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness, thy faithfulness. With my mouth will I make known thy faithfulness to all generations. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord.